let's get this started. All right. All right. So here we are again. And I'm trying something a little different this time. I'm trying to make a video. So if you guys follow me on YouTube, that's where you'll be able to see that. This is the first time I'm ever doing this, so please be kind. But if you do have anything that you want me to do differently or something that you think would help, definitely let me know. Let me just play with this for a minute. All right, so let's get started. Happy May. It's been a little while. I have had a lot going on. I'm still planning for my wedding. We officially have a date, October 2024. Very excited. So now I just have a lot of things to plan and to set up. I have to do hair, makeup, flowers. I still have to ask everybody to be in my wedding party. I have a lot going on, so we're working on it. And also I got a new job 2 weeks ago. I started working at a bank. Very excited about that. I actually went to my friend's house today and got my makeup done. So this is probably the best that you'll ever see me if you're watching from home. Hello. I'll link her information down below so that you can follow her. So let's get to it. We are still on Connecticut. This might be the last or the second to last case that I do involving Connecticut, and then I'm going to start going around New England. So episode 5, welcome. Very excited. I hope that this video thing works out. I've never done this before, but we'll see. Okay, so we're going to be talking about 3 different haunted places in Connecticut. The first one is going to be the Nathan Hale Homestead in Coventry, Connecticut. The second is going to be the Captain Daniel Packer Inn, which is in Mystic, Connecticut. And the third one is going to be Little People's Village from Middlebury, Connecticut. So I've only heard of one of these. I've only heard of Little People's Village because I actually grew up about 15 minutes away from this, and there was a lot of talk about it back in high school, but that'll be the last one that we talk about. So let's start with the Nathan Hale Homestead in Coventry, Connecticut. I remember when I went to college. I went to college up in Willimantic, Connecticut. I would drive by something that was titled Nathan Hale, and I never really thought anything about it. I just thought, oh, something that someone was named after. All right, so let's get to it. So the Nathan Hale Homestead in Coventry, Connecticut. Let's first talk about who Nathan Hale was. I had no idea. If you do, that's great. Better at history than I am. So Nathan Hale was a Connecticut patriot and a spy during the Revolutionary War. He was born in Coventry, Connecticut in 1755, and he attended Yale University, where he would later become a teacher in the towns East Haddam and New London. So he went from being very far north to very far south in Connecticut. So after the war started, Nathan Hale joined the Connecticut Militia and then the Continental Army's 7th Connecticut Regiment. On September 8th, 1776, when the British were on Long Island, Hale volunteered to go behind enemy lines and report on British troop movements, so he became a spy. The British ended up capturing him and sentenced him to be hanged for spying, obviously. A British engineer who attended the hanging actually heard Hale say, allegedly, "I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country." Again, this is still questioned whether it was said or not. It was in a few of the articles that I read that this guy heard him say that, but again, this was so long ago, who knows the game of telephone that was played from back then. But regardless, in 1985, by an act of General Assembly, Hale officially became Connecticut's state hero. Love that for him, even though he was a spy. But you know what? He was helping out the troops. The Britons just got to him first. So, now that we know who Nathan Hale was, let's get on to his family life and the haunting of his house. I'm putting quotations in the air for house, and you'll know why soon. So, Actually, Nathan Hale's great-grandfather, Reverend John Hale, was an important figure in the Salem witch trials in 1692. But that's a story for another day. Wink, wink. So, weirdly enough, Nathan Hale was never actually in the Coventry house that is known to be haunted. His family moved there a month after he was killed. Hale's father, the deacon, Richard Hale, had remarried 2 years after his first wife, Elizabeth, Nathan's mother, had died. Deacon Hale lived there until his death in 1802, and generations of the Hale family occupied the premises for decades after that. At some point in the 19th century, the homestead was sold, passing through other hands before eventually falling into very bad condition. In 1914, the property was acquired by George Dudley Seymour, a patent attorney and Nathan Hale devotee, who invested great time and care in refurbishing the homestead, including furnishing the house with as many genuine Hale family artifacts as he could obtain. I think that's so cool. This guy was really interested in Nathan Hale, and instead of letting his family home completely go to shambles, he bought it, he fixed it up, and he basically made a museum out of it by putting as many authentic furniture in as he could. So when he was done with the restoration, he opened it to the public until his death. Later on, the homestead was given to the, I don't know how to say this word, Antiquarian, and the Landmark Society, who still owns and operates. So that's the history lesson of the day. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now, let's get on to the hauntings of the Nathan Hale homestead. So, it all started with Seymour, the guy who was very interested in Nathan Hale, bought it and refurbished it. So, honestly, it doesn't surprise me because he brought a ton of furniture into a house from a family who was no longer with us. Not obviously, but I'm not surprised that there was something still attached to that. So shortly after Seymour purchased the homestead, him and his friend were visiting the house when his friend peered into a window and saw an elderly man in colonial clothing. Over the years, various other deceased members of the Hale family were allegedly seen roaming the halls of the homestead, as well as a lady in white, very typical, who some believed to be Lydia Carpenter, a former servant. The ghost of Lydia was spotted sweeping the floors and generally cleaning up. There have been footsteps heard stomping down the back stairs, and sounds of someone pacing have also been reported. More than that, the sounds of rattling chains have been claimed to have been heard coming from the basement. Some believe it's the spirit of Joseph Hale, Nathan's brother, who was also captured by the British during the war and was incarcerated in the hold of a prison ship. And let me just say, it's not a true haunted house without a ghost in colonial clothing, a lady in white, and hearing chains rattle. Like, those are the 3 bases of a haunted house, and this one has all of them. Yeah, so that's basically the Nathan Hale house. There was the man seen in the clothing, there was the servant, and then the brother, and then the lady in white. So if you're interested in visiting the Hale homestead, it is located at 2299 South Street in Coventry, Connecticut. It is open for tours from Memorial Day through October, and it's almost Memorial Day, so maybe we should take a little road trip. On to the next one, the Captain Daniel Packer Inn in Mystic, Connecticut. Now, I love Mystic, Connecticut, and I actually found that there's a book, I think I mention it in this, there's a book written about all of the haunted places in Mystic, because Mystic is super old. I definitely have to get my hands on that. So the Captain Daniel Packer Inn was built on the now Mystic River over 250 years ago. Former square rigger Captain Daniel Packer purchased the land in 1754 and completed construction of the building in 1756. This would also serve as a home for his wife Hannah and their 7 children. In the late 1700s, the inn was a welcome landmark for weary travelers between New York and Boston, who would stop for the night to rest and would partake of the hearty bill of fare, so it was very expensive. While they dined, Captain Packer would entertain his guests with thrilling tales of his adventures on the high seas. Early the next morning, he would transport them, horses, stagecoaches, all of that, across the Mystic River onto his rope ferry. On the opposite shore, he would wave to his guests and tell them to have a safe journey, then welcomed aboard another group of travelers. So every day, every other day, Captain Daniel Packer would invite people into his home who were traveling from either Boston or New York, and they just needed somewhere to stay for the night or 2 nights. It was very expensive, so do with that as you will. But he would bring them across the river. He would tell them about all of his tales, so it became very popular. There was actually a rumor that George Washington may have visited the inn during his trip through the region. So actually, the inn is very close to the site of the infamous Mystic Massacre of 1637, which I've never heard of until doing this research. More than 400 people of the Pequot tribe, primarily women and children, were brutally slaughtered in cold blood by English soldiers. That doesn't really have, well, we're not, I say we, the research that I found said that they didn't think it had anything to do with the haunted inn, but it's really interesting how close these two are in proximity of each other. So anyways, after Captain Packer died in 1825, the inn was owned and run by multiple generations of Packers until the 20th century. Makes sense, since he had 7 kids. During the years, though, the property slowly deteriorated, eventually becoming run down. There was talk of knocking the building down in 1979, but then it was purchased by Richard and Lulu Kiley. Even though they were not related to the Packer family, the Kileys decided to restore the inn, eventually returning it to its former glory. Now, on to the ghost stories. Over the decades, guests and staff members would say that they see a ghostly sea captain in various rooms of the inn. Other people have described other spooky experiences, like mug glasses moving on their own, doors randomly opening and closing, the sound of boots walking across empty rooms. Some guests have even said that they felt the presence of entities. Some of the alleged paranormal activity is related to Ada Byron Clift, a 7-year-old relative of the Packer family who lived at the inn during the 19th century. In 1874, Ada died of scarlet fever in her bedroom on the 2nd floor, and some believe her spirit is now still on the property. There's a few stories related to Ada's spirit. Some guests have heard disembodied laughter around the inn. Some staff has seen her running through the rooms or waving from her bedroom window. One report claims that a visitor's unwitting daughter was playing hide and seek with a mysterious young girl who called herself Ada. Creepy. If my daughter was playing hide and seek with a mysterious woman, we would be leaving that night. Another staff member at the inn said that she encountered Ada on the staircase up to the 2nd floor and in the restrooms. And remember, she passed away on the 2nd floor, so that kind of makes sense. And like I said before, there's actually a book, and it's called Haunted Mystic, written by Courtney McInvale Reardon, where she mentions experiences with Ada and Captain Packer. Apparently, there's a chain link that is still attached to the stone walls near the front door. It is what remains of the rope ferry across the river that Captain Packer operated. By lifting the link and letting it drop, you are creating a positive connection to the captain's spirit. I would do that if I were there to keep the peace. But if you're interested in visiting Captain Packer's Inn, it is located at 32 Water Street in Mystic, Connecticut. It is open to the public every day for fine dining in the dining room and live entertainment in the pub. That one actually sounds very nice. I would definitely be interested in going there for dinner. But apparently it's really expensive, so we'll have to do our research before then. I don't know if I'd stay there, though, overnight. Kind of creeped me out. So last but not least, we have Little People's Village in Middlebury, Connecticut. If you're from the area, you've definitely heard of this. Somebody in high school, middle school has talked about it, has talked about going there. Definitely. So like I said, I grew up in the town next to Middlebury, so it was talked a lot. People would talk about going there at night, sitting in the haunted chair. We'll get to that. And I said I'd never go, and I still haven't. So let's talk about it. This place is basically a complex of crumbling doll-sized houses. I'm actually going to add some pictures. I don't know if I'll be able to figure out how to add them on YouTube, but I'll do my best. If not, I'll put them on my Instagram. So again, the place is a complex of crumbling doll-sized houses and odd structures next to the remains of a stone house. It is rumored to be the damned legacy of insanity, brought on by the little people. There are a few versions of how this place came to be. The first story goes that back about a century ago, a man and his wife, who may or may not have been a witch, were living peacefully in Middlebury when she started seeing small fairy folk in the woods around their home. To accommodate these pixie-like creatures, she demanded her husband to build a tiny village. As the years passed and the village grew, the enchantment turned into madness, which I can see. Another story is that a man living by himself heard the voices of the little people who commanded him to build the village. Eventually, he unfortunately went insane and he killed himself because he started hearing these voices, and then he started hearing them in his head. So it just drove him to insanity, which seems to be a common thing in this story. So many people who visit this area claim it's haunted by the spirits of the little people or the ghosts of those tormented by them, and that there are strong fields of negative energy. Others claim that if you stay there long enough, you can hear the voices of the little people, feel the dark energy, and you too will become insane. So now, the creepiest part of this little village, in my opinion, is the quote-unquote throne, supposedly carved by the bewitched builder by the request of the king of the little people. Legend has it that if you sit in this cursed seat, that you will die within 7 years. I don't do that. I actually know somebody who sat on the throne and he made it his profile picture online, and that was a long time ago and he's still alive, so do with that what you want. Again, I'm gonna post some pictures about this one because this one is super creepy, even though there's not really a lot of like haunted stories about it, like ghosts and everything. But even just looking at the pictures of this rundown little town, like, why was it made? What was the real reason of why it was made? Why is it there? Why is it still there? Why don't people knock it down? Why don't they turn it into something? I know there was rumor of turning it into a gas station, but that never happened. So if you're interested in going there, go to Umberfield Road in Middlebury, Connecticut. I will not be going, so you have fun with that. But yeah, so those are the 3 stories that I have. I kept it short a little bit this time because I wanted to see how I did with the video. But yeah, so I will do maybe 1 or 2 more stories left from Connecticut, and then we're gonna move on up to Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. Oh, and Rhode Island. Can't forget Rhode Island. So yeah, that's all I have for today. I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope that this video works out. If you're just listening, I really appreciate you listening to me. Share this with your friends, share this with your family. I will talk to you guys soon.